Hey, how you doing? It's Tuesday. Reasonably positive start to the day. Around midday, my agent let me know about some script rejection. These things are always a setback. You've got to know how to deal with these things. I suppose I'm old enough, experienced enough now to deal with them. I mean, I always find myself retreating into myself a bit when I have these kinds of days. But as far as rejections go, it was a fairly positive one. Might be the start of something, or it might be the beginning of nothing. But you know, that's the nature of the industry. I suppose it's like being an actor. You maybe lose more than you win. You've just got to deal with it. And I will. Walking through Brixton Market this morning, here's something. Just I saw a guy, a normal sized guy, with a very upright posture, impressively so, that reminded me of a dwarf's posture. Ask yourself this: have you ever seen a dwarf slouching? I myself haven't. This guy, normal sized guy, very upright posture. I thought he's built like a dwarf. The upper body's built like a dwarf, but he was walking straight back, military bearing. Very impressed with that. This particular writer's life is going to mark the 30th anniversary of my return to Kid Cop, the seminal US cop series that ran for 12 years from 1980 to 1992, originally co-starring myself and Victoria Principal until 1986, when a contractual dispute led to producers killing Victoria Principal's character off in the space shuttle disaster, bringing in Sam Fox, the page 3 model, as to star opposite me for the rest of the show's duration. Though I think, if I remember rightly, Sam left in around 1990. It's a show that existed entirely in my own imagination, and it is a show, I think, that reached greater heights, I'd say, around 88 to 89. And I think that coincided, as I've touched on before, with my bed sharing with my dad. Just to briefly go over that old ground, my parents, they had a 19-year marriage. It was essentially a divorce punctuated by 3 trial marriages. We just were not used to living somewhere where there was just no arguing going on. The final fissure in the marriage happened around the spring of '87, at which point I had to swap beds with my mum. Obviously, we were all still in the same room at this time. I had to jump into the marital bed with my dad for a couple of years. My mum took my lower bunk. And I think that situation, given I wasn't a good sleeper anyway, and I remain a bad sleeper to this day, to try and deal with that situation, I would spend many sleepless hours imagining, coming up with new storylines for Kid Cop. And, the show had a difficult transition from Victoria Principal to Sam Fox. And I think, Sam Fox took a lot of stick. And I think she had quite a thick skin by the time she did the Brit Awards with Mick Fleetwood in the spring of '90, when she took a lot of stick for that. She was able to deal with it because her 4 years on Kid Cop had really brought a lot of flack her way, and it had toughened her up. By 1987, the show had become, this is Kid Cop, the show had become something of an ensemble piece, whereas back in the Victoria Principal days, it was really myself and her. She was such a big character that the only way to kind of deal with it was to pass that responsibility around. Don Johnson joined the show. His stock was relatively, well, very high at the time because of Miami Vice. Sharon Glass came over from Cagney and Lacey. Our main rivals in terms of police procedurals was, of course, Hill Street Blues. And in a bizarre quirk, much like Give Us a Clue and Grange Hill over here, we both shared the same theme tune. '89 was the summer of Batman. It was an exciting time here in the UK. Manchester was just coming through. And here's the thing, in late 1988, the show was it was on 5 nights a week during the winter nights, and I'd made the decision to take a long sabbatical from the show because I wanted to pursue a movie career. So we came up with this great storyline which brought Rutger Hauer, sadly, passed away last month. One of the original co-stars of Kid Cop, a recurring co-star, in and out of the show. His character was the one that was selling gifted children like myself to rich families. That was the basis for Kid Cop, and then somehow I became a ward of Victoria Principal, who was an NYPD detective, and I joined the force myself at the age of 8. So I left in Christmas '88, took a long break. And Don Johnson, really, he established himself. Arguably, if anybody was the lead actor of Kid Cop during that period, it was him. He established himself. He was basically carrying that show. And, I've touched on in earlier videos about wanting to make a kind of long hair return, liking to return to something looking completely different. And '89 was the year when, I started to change physically, started shaving for the first time. The body hair finally arrived belatedly after 5 years at school of no body hair and being teased by classmates. And I remember I think I was walking with my mum in real life. I was walking from Sainsbury's in Stockwell. I'd helped her with the shopping. We were walking back home, which was just a short 5-minute walk. We were coming up to the post box on Stirling Road, which was one road away from Mayflower Road where we lived. It was the post box where 5 years later I would fall in the snow and end up straddling the post box, seen by people across the road, and I got up and pretended to post an imaginary letter. So it was that post box, and I remember making a decision that the time was right for me to return to Kid Cop. Now, during this period, I finally bought the VHS recorder I really desired. The only thing left for me to buy was a house phone. Other big changes, obviously, I'd bought my Z bed in September '89, so I was finally ready to make the move out of the marital bed, get my own bed. So it was a really exciting time. I think it was the most exciting time in my life. And in real life, I had short hair at the time, but my character, Daniel Smith, I never liked the Spanish surname. I didn't like standing out, and I had the two surnames going on, so I dropped it. It became Daniel Ruiz. But, my actor's name was Daniel Smith. I just wanted to be English. So, although this character was in New York, obviously, where was I? So my character was coming back with long hair. I had the VHS recorder. I'd watched Bloodsport, the Van Damme film, about 30 times in the space of a month. I love that film. I can see it for what it is now. It wasn't much good. It had Bolo Young in it as his nemesis, and I thought he was an extraordinary character. Problems with the show when I returned reminded me of a story Keith Richards told when, after a spell out of the Stones in the mid-'70s to deal with his drug problem, he returned to find that Mick Jagger had more or less taken over the running of the band. It was no longer an equal partnership, and I did find myself butting heads with Don Johnson when I returned to the show. He was very much established as the bigwig, and we had a few problems. My character returned with longer hair then. Also, in the space of 9 months away from the show, he'd come back as a martial arts expert, owing to the amount of times I'd watched Bloodsport. So, '89 to '90 really was my year. Kid Cop, I returned. The show was arguably coming towards the end of its golden age then. I think summer of '88 to late 1990, a 2-year spell where the show was at the top. But after that, it could have got cancelled at any point. Sam Fox left. Don Johnson didn't hang around too much, owing to problems with myself. But '89, the show was peaking, and the peak was arguably my return to Kid Cop. Please subscribe. Please enjoy your day. Like and share this if you've enjoyed it, and I'll chat with you later.